What's going on, folks? I'm trying to keep you guys updated on all the little projects that I'm doing here. So I took this 5500 watt continuous 240 volt dryer, went ahead and disassembled the heating element that came within it. I ran a 120 volt single phase line to it instead, just to keep the motor itself running. So we're able to shut it back off, turn it back on like normal operations, except for it doesn't have the heating element, right? So what am I using for heating? Let me go ahead and show you. So here I have an 8 kW diesel heater, okay? I've been running this thing for about 9.5 hours, going on 10 hours actually. It's used up roughly 1 gallon of diesel. I just filled it back up. So I have this little bar and line indicator to show me where my levels are when I'm filling the tank itself. The power inverting, so it runs on 12 volt DC power. Pretty cool thing about this is that it is a battery backup off-grid application. So right now I'm pulling roughly about 42 to 60 watts in the operation just to keep this system going. I have here our 2 Deep Cell Marine 6 volt batteries. Ran in a 12 volt configuration. Ran off of a MPPT solar controller. And that is just being floated by a 48 volt charge controller itself. So that's taking 56 volts, charging it down to 12 volts in the amperage, and then allowing this to stay at a consistency of voltage that it needs to operate. So for example, 14.1 as a full battery. So I have roughly 15 kW on storage. Right now I am at roughly 28%. Pulling about 6 amps per battery. Okay. So Mark, what does this mean, right? What this means is I would not be able to run that electric dryer on this particular system. This is a 5,000 watt off-grid inverter. Okay, this would not do a 240 volt with 30 amps output right off the bat, asking for 5,500 watts, 7,500 starting. Okay, what that means is that I am pushing out, and also the house. So that means refrigerators, TVs, lights, and communications, everything's on this thing. I'm only pulling 1,300 watts, washing my clothes and drying them at the same time, as well as running the whole house. That's what I'm talking about. So instead of having a grand total of 6 of these batteries, right? So 2 sets, plus I would have to have 2 inverters, 1 transformer to be able to do all this, and then 2 breakers at 50 amp or 30 amps a piece to be able to control all that. I'm doing all that for under 1,300 watts. That's what I'm saying. So my power consumption with the diesel heater, running the dryer, and also heating the house, just the dryer alone, I can run that dryer all day long for 12 hours for $3.50 in diesel. I couldn't do that with an extra $10,000 in equipment. And if I could, I would still have crappy days like this with no production coming in and out. As I got 291 volts, it's not even registering enough to push into the system. I'm not particularly nice to the system. Oh, there goes my cup of coffee. I make my coffee, 6 to 12 times a day, depending. I air fry pretty much everything I can, and of course I use the George Foreman grill. Over here we do have the Bunsen burners, or the regular burners, not Bunsen burners, sorry, for the stove top, but I don't really use them. They use about 1,200 watts, that uses about 1,000 watts, that uses about 1,200 watts, that uses about 1,100 watts, about 1,000 watts. So they're all comparable, about the same. This makes my coffee quick and efficiently. It's one cup at a time. This makes the meals pretty quick overall. Same thing with the George Foreman, within minutes. So I'm not sitting there burning away electricity for hours and hours on the end. Of course, I do run a refrigerator, and I do have a deep freeze in the back there. So this is just running for experimental purposes only. I've ran 2 sets of clothes, and I'm running right now my blankets. They're fairly dry. It is hot as hell in there. So how this works is, I have the plug ran into the ground, which is sitting right here, and L1, which is black, and then you got your neutral. So that's just 120 volts sitting off of this plug right here. It was Sam before. Press the button. Then the heat is coming in through the heat exchanger, which is from outside, going directly into this cutout hole that I made for the inlet vent, and then it pushes out the hot exhaust. So yeah, it's heating my house and providing me warm clothes, drying everything without having to go through the electric company. I've been off grid for a grand total of, I think, 11 days. Yep. Okay, so I am off grid for 11 days grand total. I have ran my generator for 2 hours here and 3 hours there to get a full charge on my battery bank. Other than that, I have not transferred back to grid. Each night, I take the monitored amount of my percentage on my battery itself and how much production I've made throughout the day, and then where the standings were in the morning and afternoon, of course. So, as I'm right here at 290.3, it's the end of the day, and I got 291.8. So I made about a kW and a half or so of actual usable energy. I need to figure out how to get this system charged for the night. So anyways, day 11 living off grid with the Grow Watt system, with the Generac transfer switch. Keep you guys updated for future developments.